Hello, I'm Fraser Myers. I'm delighted to be joined by Spike's Germany correspondent Sabine Beppler-Spahl
Hello.
and Spike columnist Rakib Ehsan.
Hello.
And we're here to discuss the appalling breaking news developing story from Magdeburg in Germany. Tragically, at least 5 people have been killed at a Christmas market, 4 women and a 9-year-old boy, 200 people injured in a suspected terror attack. Sabina, would you like to just give us a sense of what the reaction is on the ground in Germany? What is the mood like over there?
Well, I mean, people are absolutely shocked. People were getting ready for Christmas. Christmas markets, of course, are the German institution per se, giving people a feel for the nice time to come. And then something like this happened. It's reminiscent of another attack which took place in 2016, 8 years ago in Berlin. Actually, a Christmas market I visited quite often with my kids, where 13 people were killed. An Islamist terrorist drove into the crowd. And something like this happening again is really shocking. It's also the hopefully end point of a year of several terrorist attacks which we've had. And people are kind of despairing, saying, well, we remember a time when we used to be able to go to festivals, Christmas markets without even having to worry. And why is it that this time seems to be over? What's going to happen next? So yeah, the mood is very, very gloomy. It's a terrible tragedy.
And what do you think will be the political consequences of this, Sabina? I mean, we've got snap elections coming up in February. A party like the AfD will be hoping to make a big breakthrough there. Do you think this will feed into support for for those kinds of movements?
Well, I mean, interestingly, whenever we have an attack, politicians in Germany get very, very nervous. And one of the first statements our interior minister made after this was an Islamophobic attack, she claimed. And that just seems so very odd, so strange, because why would somebody who's an Islamophobe attack as I said, the very German institution of a Christmas market and kill normal Germans? So that's not gone down well. On the other hand, the idea that this was an Islamist attack, which was peddled by some on the right, also seems very incredible given the character of the perpetrator. So it's all very, very confused. But it will be a problem for the German establishment. Why? Because it shows yet again that Germany has serious problems guaranteeing the safety of its population. And we've had, prior to the Christmas season, many discussions of how Christmas markets could be kept safe because there were warnings of attacks. And there was this ridiculous policy our interior minister designed, which is a ban on all knives. And you actually had little films on social media of police stopping elderly ladies, searching their handbags, finding Swiss knives in their handbags, then confiscating them for security reasons, and people making fun of that, saying, well, now we're definitely safe. And we're definitely going to be okay if we confiscate elderly ladies' Swiss knives. And now something like this has happened. So it just shows the authorities are unable to guarantee the safety of the citizens and unable to think of any policy which can fundamentally stop these kind of attacks. And that's going to fall back on the government.
Rakib, let's talk a little bit now about the suspect, Talib al Abdul Mohsen. What do we know about him so far?
Well, so far, what has been reported is that he is a anti-Islam atheist. He is a Saudi refugee. And just to follow up on some of Savina's points there, when you look at this case, this horrific atrocity, it is very complicated. Perhaps it doesn't make sense. But some of his posts, I think the really important thing here is that he comes across as an anti-German ideologue. And I think that's a very important point to make. Some of his posts lamented the Islamification of Europe, and he felt that Germany was at the heart of that process. And I think that what was very clear here that much of his anger was actually directed towards the German nation, its people, its citizens, its institutions and systems. Now, of course, he wouldn't be very happy with the presence of Islamist extremists in Germany. No law-abiding German, irrespective of their background, would be pleased with their presence. But I think the question is here, if you have a refugee who has relocated to Europe from the Middle East and he develops new feelings of betrayal and persecution, or that his agenda, and potentially his radical agenda, he comes across as a militant atheist, if his radical agenda is being ignored, then who does he hold responsible for that? And I think that when you start answering those questions, I think, by the way, if you're expecting logic and reason from someone who rammed a car into a crowd of families at a Christmas market, then I think you need to reevaluate how you look at terrorism more generally. But I think that when you answer those questions, then you may well feel that actually this isn't as inexplicable as some people are making it out to be.
And Rakib, I mean, there's been a lot of chatter online suggesting that really he is an Islamist after all, that perhaps he's, laid a trail of breadcrumbs to distract us from his true intentions. I mean, there's three main points that seem to be made. One is there is a tweet that seems to obliquely reference Hamas, although it's not clear what he's really getting at. There's a video of an Iranian German woman doing the rounds suggesting that he might be a Shia extremist based on his surname, and that he's engaging in this thing called taqiyya, where Muslims may be hiding their faith. And I think the third one is this video doing the rounds that says that he can be heard screaming Allahu Akbar at the arrest. Although, to be frank, I can't hear him saying that, and I'm sure that we can't. What have you make of this response, Rakib? And can you perhaps maybe debunk some of those claims?
I'm going to be blunt. I think that when some of the initial reports came out on the back of this horrific atrocity, I think that many people were disappointed. They were disappointed that a clear Islamist terrorist motivation had not emerged. And I think that if you're more interested in the perpetrator of a horrific atrocity having a particular background or ideology, then I think you need to reevaluate your moral compass. It suggests to me that you're not truly prioritizing public safety. I would make this point. I think that there's many people in Western Europe, they haven't truly grasped the degree to which their societies have imported violent competing ideologies from the Middle East, and that's contributed towards an increasingly complicated terror threat picture. Now, some of the I'd call them conspiracy theories, to be honest, connected to the concept of taqiyya. Well, listen, we're talking about someone who relocated to Germany back in 2006. He was granted refugee status in 2016. Are we seriously suggesting that he kept up this anti-Muslim atheist act for all this time, only to carry out an Islamist terrorist attack around Christmas 2024 by ramming a car into a crowd at a Christmas market? It's not the most complex attack. Let's be absolutely honest here. So I find that to be mental gymnastics. I think that many people, and to be quite frank, if you look at his profile, he's an ex-Muslim, he's left Islam, he's originally from Saudi Arabia. There may be people who are more to the right who would say that this is our ideal refugee profile here. And I think they're struggling to cope with that. And to be quite blunt, I think there's also not anti, ex-Muslim activists who can't quite comprehend the fact that there is a possibility that an ex-Muslim atheist may well be behind it, and I think they're finding it very difficult to cope with that possibility.
And Sabina, I mean, this isn't an Islamist attack from what we know so far, but as you alluded to earlier, there have been plenty of quite terrible Islamist atrocities in Germany in just this year alone. You mentioned, Mannheim, Solingen, also many foiled attacks, some involving Hamas, some involving ISIS-K. Do you think, I mean, is there a danger that because this attack is slightly different, and perhaps this is the most high-profile attack, that we actually, forget that Islamism is still really a big problem in German society?
I don't think people will forget that. I think the government was trying to use it, which is why one of the first statements was that this was an Islamophobic attack. And I think it's always in people's head. There was also the Spiegel newspaper peddled the idea that this guy was a supporter of the AfD, which has also not been repeated because all he did was just like some tweets or some AfD tweets, which he would do if he was, as Rakib said, an anti-Muslim and a radical atheist. I think what will happen is that the Germany's security, police and secret services and so on will come under bigger scrutiny, and I hope they will, because as Rakib says, this guy was not a completely a blank slate. In fact, he'd been known to the police for several years. He had some very, very aggressive anti-German tweets, and I agree completely with Rakib that the only thing we can make out from this is that he obviously hated Germany and Germans, and he made that very clear in his tweets. In fact, the day before the attack, he was meant to appear at a Berlin court because he was charged for aggressive behavior. He didn't turn up. He'd already been charged for similar incidences before. And we shouldn't forget he was a psychiatrist working in a psychiatric hospital. He was off on sick leave. So there'll be many, many questions asked as to how this guy could have fallen through the net, and why did German authorities not pick up on him? Because he's an atypical attacker, it does mean that Germany has a serious, very serious security problem. And I think that, the AfD won't be able to use it because he's clearly not an Islamist, but the government also won't be able to use it in the way they might like to use it by saying we have an Islamophobic problem. So it just shows Germany has some very serious problems and some very serious security problems. And I think that's going to be the main topic. And I think it should be the main topic.
And Rakib, finally, is Europe not taking the terror threat seriously, whether that comes from Islamists, whether that comes from the far right, whether that comes from perhaps ideologies and ideas that we're not used to seeing, as seems to be the case in this instance?
I think that many Western European countries, they failed to put safety and security at the heart of their immigration and asylum policy. I think that all Western European countries, they need to introduce more security-oriented asylum systems. I've argued for a highly selective asylum system which prioritizes women and girls at risk of sexual violence in their homelands. We don't have it. We don't have a system that remotely resembles that across Western Europe. That's the truth of it. And I think that when it comes to debates on integration, of course, I think that there are serious issues surrounding integration within European Muslim communities, and it may well differ from country to country. But actually, what you have here, this is also a case of failed integration. We can talk about the ideology of the suspect. I'll make this point very clear that the most important element of this is that he appears to be an anti-German extremist. That's failed integration of the highest order. And I've seen some people actually use the phrase, he was a mirror jihadist. So what he actually had in similar with many of the radical Islamist extremists is that a profound hatred of Germany, its society, its people, its institutions and systems.
Rakib, Sabine, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support our work and fund our fight for free speech as we head into the new year, then please do donate to Spike's Christmas Appeal. Spiked is funded by you, our readers and viewers and listeners, so anything you give this Christmas is greatly appreciated. We've also got a special offer on at the moment. Those who donate £50 or more this Christmas will be sent one of these exclusive Spiked mugs in the post. UK addresses only, I'm afraid. To find out more, go to spiked-online.com/donate. That's spiked-online.com/donate. Thank you.